And how's that for a seamless audio link? Hello everybody. Let me just get myself comfortable here. And that means adjusting my camera slightly. And again. There we go. Because I don't like it when the top of my head disappears in this little box. It's very disconcerting. I'm just going to do a little bit of jiggery pokery here. Just before we get started, for the benefit of anybody new to the streams, I am HDE, a content producer type bloke, drinker of coffee and unfussy drinker of cheap fine ales. When my duodenum isn't trying to kill me, that is. I thought what I would do tonight is revisit an idea that I had way back when I very first started streaming and build on it a little bit. And what I'm going to do tonight is just kind of dig into all of the pre-release footage that's been released so far for Horizon Forbidden West by Guerilla Games. This game's very close to dropping now. I think it's scheduled for release on the 18th of February of 2022, and I've been kind of watching the sort of progress of this with some interest, because Horizon Zero Dawn it's one of my all-time favourite video games. I think it's one of those rare ones where I've actually gone back and played through it multiple times after I've finished it, and I'm sort of feeling the itch to go back and play Horizon Zero Dawn again all the way through. That'll be my 5th playthrough of it, I think. And I've been like a lot of people. I've been really champing at the bit, waiting for the sequel to drop. I've been watching all the news to do with quite a bit of interest. Really pleased to see that it's scheduled for release on PlayStation 4 as well as PlayStation 5. We've only recently seen some information about that come out. That's looking quite interesting. What I should have done is look up some information online to sort of show the differences, as much as we can tell so far, between the two different versions of the game. But it slipped my mind. That was the one thing I didn't get when I was pulling this stream together, getting all the bits and pieces ready for it. But we'll talk about that if things go that way. What I thought we would do is just go through literally everything that's been released. Take a look at the the initial gameplay reveal, which I've looked at before on this stream. I think that's worth doing again, because I would like to migrate this stream over to YouTube when it's finished. I couldn't do that with the first stream because I was still getting to grips with all the technical stuff to do with streaming, and that initial stream had loads of lag and dropout. So it'll be good to go back and look through all of that again and hopefully get some better video performance this time. Then after that, we've got there's actually been 2 gameplay footage teasers that have been released since that initial gameplay reveal. One is a kind of a more sort of general gameplay teaser, and that's only short, but we'll look at that later. And there's more recently been a video that showcases a lot of the new machines that are going to appear in the game, and there's more to talk about in these things than you might think. So if you've dropped by on one of these streams before where I look into footage of an upcoming game, I've done these before for things like I did one on Kenner Bridge of Spirits for the PlayStation 5, another one for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which proved fairly popular. I think that's my most viewed VOD on Twitch. Shame I couldn't get that one recorded. But if you've seen those streams, then you'll know that I tend to go quite deep into my observations, and I make a point of really picking things apart as I see them, because that's what I'm all about. If you watch my videos on YouTube on HD's Totally Unoriginal Gaming Show, game mechanics and things like that are things that I really do pick over, and I really do try to go into the length and breadth of what makes games tick. So in this case, I'm going to be doing that a little bit speculatively, because we won't know what the game is like until it's in our hands, really. But being a sequel to a well-known, well-loved game, we can kind of guess at some of the ways that it's going to be enhanced and improved and expanded upon. And there's stuff here that I think overall I'm very excited for the game. I think it looks very good. I think it looks intriguing in terms of the ways that the kind of the scope of the gameplay has been broadened. But what I'll do is I'll set this going with some gameplay footage. I may have to adjust the audio mix on the fly. And what I'll do is I'm going to go through the initial gameplay reveal again. This gameplay reveal it's on YouTube. It's an official PlayStation video. You can go and watch that in full without interruption if you want to, if you haven't seen it already. What I'm going to do is just basically what I did a few months back and play through the gameplay reveal and stop at certain points to note certain things and make my observations there. There's a few things that that may have come to light since this originally dropped, so it's not necessarily going to be a straight retread of the stream that I did way back when this video first dropped. And then after that's done, we'll look at the newer stuff. And if I've done my due diligence, I was going to say I might have some other files that I've sourced from elsewhere, but I haven't copied them over to my streaming PC. There's always something. Anyway, let's take a look. This is the original gameplay reveal from something like, I think, 5 or 6 months ago. It's already been. So let's see the shape that Horizon Forbidden West was in way back when. Here we go.
Easy, easy. It's okay.
Well, there we go.
You're safe now.
It usually bugs me with these gameplay reveals that they tend to start with cinematics and show very little gameplay.
What happened? Where's Erend?
But in this case, I'm actually not too worried about it. It's nice to see the improvement in the facial animations. Nice to see the improvement in the character models and textures, the environments, all this stuff. Story is a huge part of what makes Horizon Zero Dawn work for me. So it's good to see how that is, how that aspect of it is being benefited by the PS5 upgrade.
You should go after Aaron. If they find him before you do, who knows what they'll do to him?
No, you're injured. I have to.
Don't worry about me. I'll make my own way out. Keep going.
Okay. This guy's he's too secure in his own fate. I don't think he's seen enough 80s buddy cop movies. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now right there, we saw a transition from the cinematic into gameplay. Now this is nothing new. We've seen this in games before. I remember God of War on the PlayStation 4 did this, where it would come out of a cutscene and go straight into gameplay, and the effect was near seamless. You could see the join if you were looking for it. Here, I think they've really closed that gap. The way it pops out of the cinematic into the gameplay, I think that's really smooth. And already, I've not watched this footage back, I don't think, since I did my stream on this when it first dropped. And I'm surprised how much I'm sort of bowled over by the quality of all the scenery again. The volumetric rays coming from the tree line above, all that stuff. That's beautiful. So let's let it roll again.
What are raiders doing in these ruins? I hope Erend is okay.
I did spot, actually, on social media, as Sony and Guerrilla were posting new footage of the game, there was some concern about floaty contact, which I believe is a term in animation, where basically what it means is a character's feet don't necessarily touch the ground. And there were some points in some of the pre-release trailers, some of the very shorter things, which only really kind of repurposed some of the footage that you see here, where it appeared that Aloy's feet were not necessarily in contact with the ground all the time. I think that's a very, very minor thing to pick over when a game is still like months out from release. But I must admit, there are a few few isolated spots here and there where I can see it. It's to be expected, really. I think sometimes people let their expectations run away with them, with new video games and new systems as well. Like, we know the PlayStation 5 is a beast compared to the PlayStation 4. I mean, I'm not particularly up on the technical aspects of it, but at the end of the day, they're still games consoles, and you're still playing video games. You're always going to see little details like that. I saw one guy over on Twitter. He was losing his mind over it. He was saying, oh, she's floating above the ground in these few frames. Delay this game. Don't worry about that. Can you imagine if they delayed this again? I say again, it's iffy whether it was delayed in the first instance. But can you imagine if this slipped 2 or 3 months? People would riot. Here we go. This, I believe, was our first ever glimpse of one of the new machines. This is the Claw Strider, I believe they're calling it. Interesting to see somebody riding one as well. Again, nothing new. We saw this in Horizon Zero Dawn.
This is not good. Better be careful. There might be more.
I like that you're seeing familiar mechanics from the first game there as well, like the long grass that Aloy hides in.
I need to get clear.
And that's a neat detail. We saw there Aloy dropped what I've come to refer to as a Batman bomb, which is basically like basically a smokescreen pellet kind of thing. Neat feature, because I wonder how that's going to play into the game overall. I don't remember there being anything quite like that in Horizon Zero Dawn. You could distract enemies. You could throw rocks and do things like that to divert the attention of enemies away from you, and then sneak around them. You could do things like that. But to have like a kind of a smokescreen thing that you can deploy and make an escape, that's quite neat. I have seen in some of the more recently released footage, it looks like combat in Horizon Forbidden West could be that bit more manic. It looks like there's a bit more to it, so I can see things like that. When you're being mobbed by enemies, I can see being able to lay down like a temporary smokescreen or something. That could be a really useful, quite important part of the gameplay. Just cool to see that it's there. And I did notice as well, the machine has that attack that it does, where it lets out that kind of, looks like a sonic attack, where it causes Aloy to cover areas. Again, that's nothing new, because I try to remember the name of the machines in the game there. The long leg in Horizon Zero Dawn does that. It has an attack that just temporarily, like just really momentarily, just kind of incapacitates Aloy. So it's nice to sort of see that that's being brought back. On the other hand, I kind of feel like I hope that the other machines in the game do some slightly different things. One of the great virtues, I think, of the range of different enemy machines in Horizon Zero Dawn was that they all required a different approach to actually beat them. One of the things I really liked about it is that if you know anything about like real world bushcraft and hunting, there are some elements of that come into play in the game. There are things that you can do, like really sort of show how much of a geek I am for this stuff now. There are things that you could do in that game, like you could find a high point that was inaccessible to a larger machine, and you could soften it up from a distance. You could do things like that, and there were other machines that required a very specific approach. You couldn't use the same tactic on every single machine, which is something I really liked, and it kind of made the game more interesting when you got into encounters where you had more than one type of machine attacking you at one time. That's something I will. I've got some things to say about later, actually. But really liking what I've seen there. It also looked a little bit like the kind of the ranged combat has changed ever so slightly. We'll see more of that in a second. So I'll just let that go.
It's close. I can't shake him.
It's really looking like the game is making the player work to avoid these things.
Maybe I can lose him in here.
Aloy's incidental dialogue as well seems a lot broader in the scope of just this one encounter. So I don't know whether that means that she's got more to say in the game. And there we go, there's another new feature. This, I suppose, is not really news by this point, but that's just part and parcel of doing this. You've got to... I build this as a comprehensive piece of coverage of the game, so I'm going to go through it anyway. The zip line, or the what would you call it? The grapple line thing that Aloy's got there is a new feature. That seems to be a little bit in vogue at the moment. I noticed that Halo Infinite has added that to the Master Chief as well. You've got that grapple thing that you can shoot and use it to repel towards objects or enemies. It looks like that's intended to be used to navigate the scenery here. And I really like how that's implemented from what I've seen here, because you notice how the machines were actively following and really going to great lengths to keep up with Aloy and just chase her down, really. That works slightly differently to what I've seen in Horizon Zero Dawn. I never saw anything go to quite those kind of lengths of like following you up multiple levels of a structure to get to you. So I can see that this grapple thing is going to be useful for getting away from like mobs of enemies. That's going to be really cool. But this is the part of the game that I'm really, really interested in. And I'm just going to let this go. This short section coming up right now is really the reason why I'm determined that when I play this game, I want to play it on a PS5. I'm glad that it's coming to PS4, but I think the extra power of the PS5 is really going to give this stuff. It's really going to do this stuff justice. So just check it out.
Machines. Better go under.
This is a new feature that's been talked about, that there will be underwater exploration, which Horizon Zero Dawn didn't have. This looks beautiful. Love the vibrancy of these colours. The way the fish move. The idea that you've got amphibious enemies that are going to be on Aloy's case. That's great. I love the way these shoals of fish, these like bait balls, work. And even the particulate effect, the way you see those bubbles moving along in the stream there to show where a current is. Really cool. Love the water effects. I did notice somebody was saying on Twitter, I think it was, that one of the most noticeable differences between the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 versions of the game is in the way environmental effects like water, like the surfaces of water, things like that are rendered. And it's hard to see because we've only got static screenshots to go online. I did notice there was one guy on YouTube he'd put up a video where he was trying to compare short sections of video and static images taken from Horizon Forbidden West on PlayStation 5, and it was a mix of static images from the PlayStation 4 version and images that he'd lifted from Horizon Zero Dawn. So you kind of wonder how useful a comparison it is. But that was interesting because it did show you what kind of areas of the game you can expect to see being improved visually on the PlayStation 5, and it seems like environments really get the benefit of that. I can see that it's going to have better lighting effects, scenery, like particulate effects, what do they call it? Volumetric lighting, all that kind of stuff. Seems like the PlayStation 5 is going to be a bit better placed to really bring all that stuff out. And I reckon this is going to be great, whichever platform you play it on. But for me, it looks like PlayStation 5 is that's going to be the way to experience it. I think we're coming up to another cinematic here. Yeah.
I have friends, okay? I'm not just the ones you slaughtered.
Erend from Horizon Zero Dawn.
There's gonna be trouble.
He always reminds me of a guy that I used to know years ago, who was it's a bit of a fool, basically. He was all talk and no substance. Erend is like the more capable version of that guy. So.
You guys wouldn't be laughing if I had my hammer. Enough! Get moving!
It's nice to see characters returning from Horizon Zero Dawn. I did enjoy the partnership of Erend and Aloy. That was a nice, unusual kind of character pairing for this kind of story, I thought.
And deal with that tremor tusk.
I really appreciated about Horizon Zero Dawn that Aloy had no love interest at all and no interest in that kind of thing. People talk about games and movies and books and things having strong female leads and that, and very often they're compromised.
Then we'll head for the old bridge and meet up with the others.
Will do.
Yeah, got it.
This must be Aaron's camp. The raiders made short work of it.
Filthy Oseram.
Hang on, just checking something on stream. There we go. So there we go. Looks like we got the stealth attacks like we had in Horizon Zero Dawn. Here we're seeing signs that combat is looking a bit more complex, because you can see individual parts of armor are actually being targeted on human opponents, much as you could do it with machines in the first game.
You think you can hurt me?
And that's pretty cool as well. Looks like the melee weapon has additional upgrades. And that's what looks like a focus effect for targeting specific parts of the enemy or maybe their armor. Really neat. Not very much has been said about that in the lead up to the game, and I'm hoping that there's some extra complexity to the combat that comes in there.
Better get to higher ground. Find a way.
Just going to pause here to rant for a minute, because one of the criticisms that a lot of people levelled at Horizon Zero Dawn was that they felt that the combat was a bit unbalanced. And by that, what I mean to say is a lot of people were saying that ranged combat with like your bow and arrow, that felt great. People were really pleased with that. And to be honest, I think that's the way you take down the majority of enemies in the game. I certainly tend to use the bow and arrow more than anything else when I play. But some people felt that actual melee combat was not terribly inspired, because in the game you have a light attack and a strong attack, and some people felt that was not enough. I thought it was perfect, to be honest. If it had been any more complex than that, I think I would have struggled with it. What I'll be interested to see is how, if Guerrilla have kind of fleshed out that aspect of the game, I'd like to see how they've approached that, and whether that means that certain types of enemies that you encounter in the game, like human enemies, uh, whether they are slightly more difficult to contend with than they were in the first game, or whether they require specific tactics in and amongst themselves. By that, what I mean is where you have different types of human enemies, whether you need to take different approaches to them, much the same as you would have to hunting different machines. That could make the game really shine. At the same time, if they do go that route with it, I hope the game doesn't become overcomplicated, or like I'm at an age now where when I play games, my fingers tend to get confused and I forget what buttons I'm pressing to do whatever. So I sort of hope it doesn't have that effect. If it works to make combat more satisfying, I think that's what everybody wants. That could make it really worthwhile. There's the old focus scan again, and the grapple as well. So I can see you having to use that to traverse environments a lot. I can see the getting from A to B in this game being quite different to how it was in the first game. I'm pausing there because this was something I remember mentioning last time I streamed this, and saying that I had some concerns, and I still have these concerns. That kind of glowing hang glider thing that Aloy's got there. Guerrilla have made a big deal about saying that this is a feature that's been added to the game, and I am always a bit apprehensive about things like this, because I'm never really a fan of kind of gliding mechanics in things like 3D platform games. It all comes down to how they're implemented. My problem with them is that quite often I struggle with them when you've got things like this in games, because it comes down to how they control. Sometimes you can be running around on land and that's fine. You're happy as Larry, and then as soon as you have to jump off a sheer cliff face or something and glide to another point, I quite often feel like that's the point where I start struggling with the controls. Sometimes when I've seen things like this in games, they suffer from feeling overly floaty, or the kind of the inertia effect and the kind of momentum that the character has when they're using that mechanic sometimes feels off. And sometimes I feel like control is being taken away from me in ways that I don't like. So I can't say, obviously, because by this point nobody's played the game, but this is the one thing I've seen of anything so far that I have any serious reservations about. And if I remember rightly, there is something that comes up later that shows you the kind of instance of something happening where, for me, it tends to be a problem. I'll point that out when we get to it. But let's set it rolling again.
Gotta be careful.
If you know the first game, you know what's coming up here. There we go.
That should do it.
And that's the machine overridden so that Aloy can ride on it. Just reminded it of a funny little story. When this game first came out, or maybe like a year after it came out, I think the game had been a big hit, and it was starting to go on sale certain places. I was looking around on Facebook, and an artist buddy of mine, he used to amuse me because he would very often be posting about video games, and he told a story about how he'd bought Horizon Zero Dawn, and his his young son had watched him playing it and had started showing an interest in it. And when I say young son, I think the kid was only like maybe 5 years old, something like that. And the kid really got into the whole idea of being able to override the machines and walk around on them. And I remember seeing a post from this guy on Facebook where he was saying that he'd taken to when he was having his playtime with his son, because being an artist he works from home, and that's one of the perks you get from being in that line of business. He was sort of having his playtime with his son, and he would say to his son, like, "What do you want to play?" And his son would say, "Daddy, can we play the game where you make the metal animals your friend?" so that was what they would do. It was basically like a science fiction version of Horsey, which, like, if you've got young relatives, you know what I mean. And basically, what would happen would be that there would be some like curtain pole or something lying around their flat, I think, if I remember the story right, and the kid was taking the pole and getting his dad to walk around the apartment on all fours, and then he would walk up to him with the pole and make out like he was he was jabbing him with it, and then ride around on the back of his dad, and that was him making his dad, who was the metal animal, his friend. I just thought that was really sweet. I think of that every time I play this game, because it's just one of those things you see and you go, "Ah, it's really nice."
Help's on the way, Errant.
Loving this scenery, these vapor effects.
Aloy? Aloy! Watch out!
That's new.
Errant, stay put. I'll handle this.
I have her!
Got ya.
Okay, a few interesting things going on here. First of all, new machine. This is the Tremor Tusk, which is basically a robot mammoth, and that's just all kinds of awesome as far as I'm concerned. One of the big things that really appeals to me about Horizon as a franchise, we can say now, is that being an 80s kid, I grew up with certain popular 80s toy lines and things. And one of the ones I really remember is the Tomy Zoids line, which Zoids are still around today. Somebody was posting on social media a while back about is it Zoids Battle Arena or something? Some fairly recent game, something that's been released on the Nintendo Switch, I think. And for anyone not in the know, if it's before anyone's time or if people are just not aware, Zoids were basically these awesome plastic model kits where you would build around a motorized chassis. You would build this sort of science fiction anthropomorphized, is that the right word? Some sort of anthropomorphized vehicle, where basically what it was you would have these war machines that looked like spiders, tarantulas, snails, alligators, rhinoceroses, all this kind of thing. And one of them I remember was a gorilla. So that kind of people are going crazy outside my window there. That kind of came to mind because in the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC, you have these gigantic robot bears that reminded me of the gorilla. And basically, like the links between the two are very strong in my mind. And I do remember one of the most expensive Zoids model kits you could get was a gigantic robot mammoth. So to see that there's a robot mammoth in Horizon Forbidden West, that ticks all sorts of boxes for me. I'm really pleased that they've done this. It looks great. It looks absolutely massive. So I think it's going to be really fun to fight these things. The other cool thing here is that we're not just fighting a larger machine. It's been overridden and repurposed by human enemies, and you can see that it's got up here. You can see it's got this wooden arrangement on top where I don't know what you would call it. Basically, the structure of the machine has been added to so that people can ride in it, and I think that are those like gunners emplacements on it or something, archers emplacements, whatever you call. Really cool, really cool, and it just says to me that some of the creatures or some of the machines you're going to encounter in Horizon Forbidden West, they're going to be dangerous in all kinds of ways. I can see. I really hope that this game, when it comes out, I really hope I don't read reviews where people say, "Oh, it's awesome, but it's far too easy," because you see stuff like this and you expect the game to be challenging. So really hope this works out. It looks awesome. I love watching this footage of how Aloy fights this thing.
Gotta keep moving.
Bring us around! Take it tough!
Good to see that the familiar weapon wheel from Horizon Zero Dawn is still there. That did some damage. Now, I mean, this certainly doesn't look easy, does it?
I have to stay ahead of it. Gotta slow you down.
Something else I love about the first game, which I can see is going to carry over to this, is the way you're encouraged to use like different tactics and whatever tactics work for you to take these machines down. Using the slingshot thing there, looks like it does real damage, and that's nice, because sometimes when you get a variety of weapons in games like this, sometimes you always get a few that feel like the lame ducks of the pack. This thing looks like it's not mucking around. Now here we go. This is that point I was talking about earlier with the glider. When I said there was an instance coming up in the footage where it showed the kind of situations where those kind of mechanics don't always work for me, that was one of them. The whole kind of zipping around from high points in the landscape to navigate around a combat area, that looks really cool. When she activates the glider, I'm going to rewind this and see. I'm going to rewind this just to play this and show you what I mean again. When she activates the glider here, that coincides with the Tremotusk crashing through this debris, and that looks chaotic. To watch it, it looks like quite a spectacle. It looks really fun. Whether it will work to play, or whether that will be as fun and exciting as it looks, or whether it would just feel like a nuisance, that's what I'm interested in.
Aloy!
Aloy's got no problems with it. She took that thing down like...
See me?
You bet.
To folks like you or I, that would be like, oh my god, crazy day today. I was chased by a massive robot mammoth. To Aloy, that's just Tuesday. But
This time, I have a present for you. I found it, Aloy. Huh? What'd you send me for? Right before the raiders got me.
You did good. Now, let's see where this thing will take us.
it's an interesting thing we're seeing. Whether this is just for the benefit of the cutscene or whether you'll get UI stuff like this in the game, I don't know. But it ends on a reveal of one of the other new features for the game.
always said a storm was coming.
which is the weather systems.
Yeah. And it's almost here.
And that's the end of that initial gameplay teaser. That was a 15-minute almost reveal. I was really pleased to see that they showed so much on the first reveal of that game, because it really makes a statement that it says we're not messing around. We're not going to show you trailers that are just pre-rendered gameplay footage. I get the impression that Sony and Guerrilla really believe in this franchise, and they're entirely justified to. I remember when I first played Horizon Zero Dawn, I found it absolutely captivating, and like since then, you sort of, especially when you go back and replay a game, or you play other games in between it, I think after my third playthrough of Horizon Zero Dawn, I remember playing a couple of other things and then getting started on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think it was. And it was then that I really sort of realised like how many details Horizon Zero Dawn was basically cribbing from open world adventure games, and just doing enough to put its own spin on them and inject a bit of originality to them. But at the same time, it's hard to sort of look back at the first game now and like not see it as a science fiction Assassin's Creed. That said, I think it knocks the Assassin's Creed games sideways. Assassin's Creed Odyssey really outstayed its welcome. Really, little note for Ubisoft. It takes talent to take a game like Assassin's Creed and drag it out so much that all the variety of things that you can do in it start to feel samey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey killed my interest in Assassin's Creed completely. It was just far too bloated. I didn't think it was that great a game either. I'll not get off topic and start ranting about it, but that was very much a case of, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that was very much a game that I enjoyed up until a point that I realised I was not enjoying it anymore. And I think I had to play it for another week then before I'd actually finished it and I could say I was done with it. So, not a fan of that. But, lost my train of thought now. Yeah, the thing with this, when you see that that Guerrilla and Sony have got confidence in their product, it's nice to see that they're not hiding behind kind of details like flashy cinematics. Although you have got cutscene footage in that reveal, it's incidental to everything else that they're showing you. It's nice to see it there because you don't get the impression that you're being shown pre-rendered graphics or like a CG movie that you're expected to get excited over. It's like you're being shown that so that they can show it to you, so you can see how it looks as part of the broader package. And it's nice to see what looks like a game that, 5 or 6 months ago was already looking pretty complete. There are a few things that I kind of think I wish we had more information on by this point, because the game is literally, 2 and a bit months away, if that. I think maybe 8 weeks, something like that. There are details like the whole weather system thing, which is teased at the end of that footage. Just see if I can pause it on a... There we go. This stuff. The game apparently features supercells, like storms that will randomly appear, or at least I think they randomly appear at certain points during the game, and those apparently change the way the game plays quite a bit. Potentially a really neat feature, but I haven't really seen, I don't think anyone has seen enough yet as to how they're actually going to work. I wonder if that's going to be like simply an environmental hazard, because we've seen that in games before. I think that was done in Just Cause 4. It's been done in games like game I played recently actually, was going to do a video on, was Spec Ops: The Line, which gets a lot of criticism for being a straight ahead military third person shooter. But weather effects in that game made it really interesting. That game doesn't get the credit it deserves for trying to do things differently. And even though it may not be the most original idea, there may be games before Spec Ops: The Line that did that. It's the kind of thing that when it's added as an additional element to a game, it does immediately make things a lot more interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how it figures into the game. What would be really cool is to see if it changes the environments in any way. I mean, storm damage, we've unfortunately tragically seen in the news recently just what the effect of like natural disasters like that can be. And not to trivialize something like that, but if you talk about this kind of thing being used as a feature in a video game, there's a lot of scope for interesting things like environment deformations. I wonder if even a feature like this could potentially affect the behaviour of machines. I mean, could there even be specific machines that you see during these storm events that you don't see anywhere else? Do the storms represent an opportunity to do things in the game that you can't do at other times? That could all be really fascinating. But like I say, we don't really have enough information to go on. I'm hoping that we'll see more as we lead up to the game's release. What I think could be a sort of a smart tactic on Sony's part is if they start hitting us with like all the really explosive gameplay information as we lead right up to the game's release, because I think if they do that, if the game has got some really interesting, unique features like hidden away that we've not seen yet, if those are disclosed closer to the game's release, I can see people going absolutely nuts for that. Because the game already has got people's attention. I mean, it's a sequel to a massive hit. A lot of people really love Horizon Zero Dawn, so it's already got people's attention. It just sort of remains to be seen, I think, if they can yank anything else out of the bag, or if there's something else that they can dangle in front of us to kind of, I don't know, maybe even convert a few naysayers. There are people out there who don't like Horizon Zero Dawn. Maybe this game's got something up its sleeve that could convince those people. We'll just have to see. Anyway, that's that one. We've got some additional stuff. Just going to bump down the audio quality here. The other two clips I've got here, we've got the more general gameplay trailer. This is kind of interesting. What I'm going to do with this one, I will let this one play in full, so that you guys can see what's going on with it, and then I'll go back through it and highlight certain points, because this one seems like it's showing us things that we didn't see before, but at the same time I wonder how honest a representation of the game it actually is. Let me just adjust something there in my OBS. This is only short. This is like, it's showing up in my YouTube as like 1 minute and 10 seconds. So here we go.
The land is dying. And the machines are out of control.
With the voiceover, you can sort of tell it's engineered more as a trailer. These transition effects are what spoil it for me. I feel like we're more in territory of seeing what would you call it? Promotional material rather than an actual demonstration of the game. this part I took issue with a great deal. I'll explain why later.
Whatever comes, I will be ready.
Okay, there we go. I said it was short. We'll go through that again, because although I say that it looks like it's more of an advert than a kind of a gameplay reveal in any great way, there is stuff to be taken from it. I mean, if you view it solely as an advert, it's a very successful one, I think, because I remember when I saw this, I was certainly excited by what I saw.
The land is dying. And the machines are out of control.
We've got footage there from the initial gameplay reveal. But this is interesting. This section here, we're seeing machines that we didn't see in the initial reveal. And it moves so fast, my old man eyes can't really take in what's going on. But it looked to me like what we had there were like robot lions. Is that maybe? They certainly roar like lions. What's interesting there is there's been a little bit of information has come out online about some of these new machines, and it is like a little bit of information from what I could tell. But what's interesting there is that those lion-like machines, they seem to have a kind of a pack hunter thing going on, and I think that could make the game really interesting. Like I was saying before, the great virtue of the variety of machines in Horizon Zero Dawn is that they all behave differently. You know, you need to use different tactics to deal with them. You need to think carefully about how you approach them, and you need to think about how to approach them without letting them overwhelm you. Now, lions are an interesting choice. If that's what these are in the game, lions are a really interesting choice to develop a kind of an analog enemy type for in the game, because lions in the wild are deadly. If you watch documentaries about how they hunt, they're really ferocious. The idea of facing up against like 3 or 5 of these things in a group, I think that could be really, really fun. That could be a really, you know, again, provided that that issue of kind of the challenge aspect of it is properly managed. I think that could be really, really cool. I wonder, whenever you get games where enemies attack in packs, I wonder how the AI will complement that. I wonder if you're going to get creatures that hunt in packs but also have their own autonomous AoE. That might be asking a bit much. I don't know. Going to be really cool to see how they factor into the game. Transition from that scene into this. We've got more glider footage. And then a transition to the underwater part again. I don't really know what to make of this. I mean, this part here, I'll go from the... there we go. That almost looks to me like it's bordering on being pre-rendered cutscene again. And I wonder how the glider is going to handle there. This underwater scene gives away something a little more interesting than you might think at first glance. I'll play this again. First of all, another new machine. This is another amphibious enemy. We all know the Snapmaw from Horizon Zero Dawn. Basically a robot alligator, crocodile, whatever it is. Really cool, because I remember there was a robot alligator in the Zoids line, and that was cool. But we got what looks a little bit more like little more like we've got a kind of a dinosaur design going on here. Something I might have mentioned last time I streamed about Horizon Forbidden West was that it always seemed a little bit jarring to me how you had in Horizon Zero Dawn, you had all the machines were designed around the forms of like relatable animals, and then you had the Thunderjaw, which I remember looking at it and thinking like, wow, that's impressive, it's really big, but what is it? And it took a while before I think I read somewhere online that it was intended to be a robot Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I thought that's a bit jarring when you're putting it in a game alongside like robot buffalo, robot what would you call them? You had robots that were like giant oversized panthers. You had robot moose, that kind of thing. Robot horses, so you have all those kind of animal designs that are sort of relatable. We can look at them as players, and the great beauty of their design is you look at them, and even though they're made of shiny metal and glowing parts, and they look like something out of a Michael Bay movie, you can still see exactly what they're supposed to be. And then I remember seeing the Thunderjaw and thinking, what is it? And then as soon as I read, it's supposed to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I thought, oh yeah, of course it is. But it still felt strange to me that you had this sort of prehistoric animal design alongside these machines that were designed to look by animals that are more recognisable. And I had that a little bit here, because this to me at a glance looked like a plesiosaur. And you see so little of it in the trailer that it's hard to really make out, but you can see it's got that general shape. It's got the long neck, the long elongated legs, long tail. But what is really interesting, if you check where my mouse pointer is on screen, what is really interesting is this thing on its back, which I remember looking at, and it bugged me a little bit, because there was something about it where I thought that shape looks familiar. And this is a big part of the whole kind of process of designing enemies or assets or characters for games, is that you do have what's called shape language, which is like an idea that whereby you use certain shapes or objects and reuse them to suggest certain things. And I remember thinking, that looks familiar. And it bugged me. And then I realised why it looks familiar is that actually looks to me like a smaller version of the disc on the top of the tall neck. And if you're unaware of what a tall neck is, you'll see one later. So I wonder if that is some kind of underwater reconnaissance type creature, or whether it serves some specific purpose besides just being an enemy in the game. Going to be cool to see if I'm right about that. It's going to be cool to face off against these things, full stop. What we got there is, it took me a while to twig, but if I can do it properly. These enemies here actually seem to be a new type of machine. Initially I thought they were the same as the Claw Strider that you see in the original gameplay footage. But let's see if I can find a good static frame. If you look at these closely, they do actually seem to have a slightly different body shape. They've got these kind of flailing arms and legs. They look to be a bit more like, again, it seems like another sort of dinosaur type design. It seems that Guerrilla are leaning a bit more heavily in that direction. And these things look like they're they're meant to muck you up. They're meant to do some damage. I think if Guerrilla are pushing in more of a dinosaur inspired design for some of these creatures, I think that's no bad thing, because the thing with a direct sequel to a game like Horizon Zero Dawn is that you need it to be recognizable as a sequel, but it also needs to do some new things. It also needs to have its own sense of identity and its own personality. And I think by changing up that focus in the design of the machines, that could be a very good way for Guerrilla to accomplish that. These things look like they're going to be really ferocious to fight. So honestly, that's all it needs to do for me. For the machines to pack a challenge, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. This looks insane. These rolling enemies. I have some reservations here as to whether these enemies are actually doing anything completely new and original, because their attack seems to be based on churning up the ground or bashing up scenery around you, and there were machines in Horizon Zero Dawn that did that, but these things look a lot more mobile, and I like the way the grapple line plays into this. It just looks like absolute chaos. This is the tall neck that I mentioned earlier. You see that disc over the top there, just for the benefit of anyone who's not familiar with Horizon. I took issue with that sequence a little bit, just because it really looks like it could have come from the first game, even down to Aloy's costume there. I won't go back over it. And towards the end of this short trailer, Guerrilla are really they're really upping the ante as you go through the trailer. This is why I say it's a good advert, is because it stokes your anticipation for what the game is going to provide. And seeing the tall neck there, like I say, that looks like it could be lifted from Horizon Zero Dawn. That was a little disappointing. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe this is from Forbidden West. I don't know. But if that's disappointing, then what comes after it certainly isn't. We've got the shell snapper, I think it's called. That machine was kind of it was first seen in the very first cinematic trailer, I think, that was released, the cinematic teaser trailer for Horizon Forbidden West, and we first saw that as being like a submerged creature with a load of moss and camouflage and stuff on its back, and it came up out of the ground and turned its head towards Aloy, and that looked really cool, although you didn't really get much of a sense of what the creature was going to do. That is certainly different here. And should mention Aloy's costumes as well. The outfits, which are a big deal in the game. The outfits have quite an effect on your on how the game plays. Some of these new costumes are looking really good. But you get a good look at the shell snapper there without any camouflage. And then this was totally unexpected. This gigantic robot anaconda, it looks like. Really cool. It certainly looks like Guerrilla haven't skimped when it comes to ideas. I think I remember seeing an interview with, I think it was with either Herman Hulst or The guy's name escapes me now. The game director, but certainly somebody affiliated with Guerrilla at the time was saying that with the first game, Guerrilla's design department had a surfeit of ideas for scenarios and machines that they could put into the game. So it seems like what happened with Horizon Zero Dawn was that list was curated and whittled down until you had, you know, the best stuff. It looked like they distilled things down to the most potent rocket source, and then it looks like what's happened here is, I would not sort of speculate that Guerrilla have recycled any ideas or anything, but it looks like there's plenty of new stuff, and the new stuff looks really, really appealing. And what stands out to me is not just that it's new stuff, but it's new stuff that looks like it's had a lot of thought put into it. This shot that I've paused the video on here with this gigantic robotic snake. The thing that looks interesting to me about that is the way you see how it's wrapped around that structure. I wonder to what extent that is a feature of gameplay. I mean, if it's maybe it's modeled after a boa constrictor. Maybe that's what it does. Maybe it fights by constricting things. Maybe it's there to mash up the scenery. There's just so much in this footage that I can't help but watch and think, how is that going to play into the final product? There's so much potential here for it to do interesting things. It's just makes the game look really, really exciting. But I'm going to click off of that one. And there's one final video for this stream, and this one is a slightly more in-depth look at the machines. Now this one's only short. This goes on about twice the length of the last video, so let's see if this one gives us any more information. I'm hoping that this is more in line with the kind of publicity material we might get in the lead up to the game's actual release.
From the ruins of the old ones to its sunken depths,
Got those plesiosaur
it
things
is
again.
ruled by the machines.
What looks like the Snapmore.
They scour its forests, always on guard as they scavenge metal remains.
Is this a robot monkey?
Soak up the sun
Excuse me.
to patrol the sky. Roam the land to protect its treasures. Each more dangerous than the last.
There's that snake again.
Are built only to kill. It is said there are those who can harness them, even bend them to their will. A powerful secret
What I am noting,
in the wrong hands
watching this stuff,
will lead
is that you do
to a
seem to be
storm of
seeing
destruction.
some of the machines from Horizon Zero Dawn being repurposed for Forbidden West. I've got no idea to what extent that will happen. But at the same time, some of the new machines seem to fill similar roles to the ones filled by those that original cast of machines. Oh, we got Retro Tech Chris in chat. Hello, my friend. How are you doing? It's been a quiet night in chat. I think you're. I think you're the first person to stop by. Living the dream. It's, not much of a dream, to be honest. The thing is, from my perspective, well, from your perspective, this might look really cool. From my perspective, I'm just a guy sat on his own watching the internet, looking at footage of games that he can't afford. So, so you're being entertained, but I'm tormenting myself. But just for the benefit of Retrotech Chris and anybody else joining the stream halfway through, what I'm doing here is just taking a quick look through all of the pre-release footage for Horizon Forbidden West, which is my most keenly anticipated video game coming out in the near future. I've just been doing a quick breakdown of everything that's been shown so far, and just sort of speculating as to what it means for the game itself, and it looks really, really cool. I don't know if this is something that you've got any interest in yourself, Chris. If so, feel free to say. It certainly looks really impressive. I'm just going to get to a point in this video where I had things to say about it.
The Forbidden West.
There we go.
From the ruins of the old ones to its sunken
There we go,
depths.
just let that cinematic stuff go. Retrotech Chris says, oddly, I've never been much of a gamer, but it's fun to see what folks are up to. Yeah, I can totally get along with that. There's been points in my life where I've not been interested in video games. To be honest, at the moment, myself, I don't think I've actually played any games for probably getting on for about a month. I don't think I've played anything seriously, because it used to be a thing for me where I'd sit down and play games for a couple of hours every evening. But I just got to a point where I've had some health issues, as you're aware, Chris. But I got to a point where that was making me feel unable to sort of sit and stare at a screen with the kind of concentration that requires. I think the other thing was I managed to get hold of a copy of Metroid Dread, which people have been raving about on social media, and I thought that'll sort of take my mind off things for a bit. And I just didn't get on with it at all. I just find it so overrated, and it's just things like that. Sometimes you get hold of something that's new, and you think maybe this will reignite my interest, and then you just think, oh, it's just not getting it, just really not feeling it. But it's like you say, it is fun sometimes to look at things that look interesting. And this one I am genuinely interested in. I mean, I don't know. Retrotech Chris says, last and only Metroid I played was the NES version. That's a good game. You were a gamer back in the day. If you were playing NES games back in the day, you were playing the best games. There was some great stuff came out back then. It was a great game. It was a great game. I was actually looking at some stuff recently, because I was actually thinking about doing a video on Metroid Dread. I've just got to a point at the moment where I can't face like making YouTube content, just because the effort it takes. That thing that I've had as well of like having a struggle to sit in front of the screen all the time. It's just made the whole thing of sitting in front of a video editor feel really unappealing at the moment. But I did get as far as doing some research into the Metroid series, and I remember I did actually play the NES version of Metroid not that long ago, because it's one of the included games on the NES mini console that they did, and that's great because you get the benefit of having the digital save states, so you can actually play through it and like keep track of your progress. I mean, you could on the original cartridge because it had the password system, but the NES had some brilliant platform exploration games. I remember it quite fondly because in the UK, I mean, I know you're stateside, and the NES was a much bigger thing over there than it ever was here. I think I knew one kid in school who had a Nintendo Entertainment System, and one of my friends locally A chap I know to this day. I remember talking to him and his girlfriend, and she was saying that she had an NES when she was a kid, and we it was such a revelation. We both sort of stopped and looked at her like, what? Nobody had one of those in the UK. But, yeah, Kid Icarus, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, yeah, all classics. People look back at those today, and I know there's a bit of a trend at the moment for looking back on those older NES games and sort of being a bit sniffy about the play mechanics of them. There's one guy I know who he recently on a stream he was saying he's never got on with the Legend of Zelda games. But when you look back at those old games, to my way of thinking, they are what gaming was all about, where you had enough of a test of your personal skill and your willingness to stick at a game, and they had that thing of you would play through them up to a point where you'd get stuck, and then you actually had to invest real thought into how you were going to get past that. I think the original Metroid being a good example. What I did find that was interesting, which I didn't previously know, was that the original NES Metroid, as much as people care about this kind of stuff, Metroid as a series has got its own sort of what do they call it? Its own sort of canonical storyline, and I didn't realise until I started reading up on it that the original NES version of Metroid isn't considered part of that storyline. That's been sort of shunted to a side, and I think it's the Game Boy Advance remake of it is considered to be like the starting point of the Metroid storyline now. Metroid Zero Mission, I think it's called. Yeah, I thought that as well. I thought it was odd to begin with, but thinking about it, when you look at those Game Boy Advance Metroids, I mean, Metroid Zero Mission is not one that I'm actually familiar with, but I do have Metroid Fusion, which Metroid Dread is billed as being the sequel to, or a direct follow up to, and Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance is really good. So I can see that it makes more sense to take a sort of a technically superior version of a game that's got a bit more room in it for kind of traditional storytelling, and then say, right, this is the starting point of our franchise. I think that's I can see the sense in doing that. I do kind of think that the Metroid series is a little bit over-egged, though. I do feel like it wouldn't hurt Nintendo if they were to put out like a Metroid anthology release or something. I know people want a lot of people want the Metroid Prime trilogy remastered and re-released for the Switch, but I'm sort of thinking, well, no, take the original Metroid or Zero Mission and Fusion, and there was a Game Boy sequel. I didn't know, it was another thing I didn't know about until I started doing research. But the original sequel to the NES Metroid wasn't on the NES. It was on the Nintendo Game Boy, and when I found that out, it blew my mind. I just thought, what a weird way of doing things. Just seems strange having your main line release on your home console, and then the sequel is on a little black and white handheld. But I don't know. But that's a tangent. Let's get back to the game footage, because I'd set this going again. Here we go. Just talking about the different types of enemy machines in this game. This is what really makes the game for me. It's fun to see the kind of designs that they're using. You've got here in this trailer just a quick succession of new things that they're showing you.
Roam the land to protect its treasures. Each more dangerous than the last.
I'm going to go back through these.
They scour its forests, always on guard.
this one was interesting because I couldn't work out what it was the first time I looked at it, but it looks to be some sort of robot monkey or something, like some sort of primate thing.
They scavenge metal.
And I'm not sure whether this is the same machine or something else, or whether I'm looking at two different types of machines. But they're obviously scavenging through parts. That's something that I forget the name of the machine that does it in the first game, but there is a machine in Horizon Zero Dawn that does this. You find them sort of hunched over piles of wreckage, like rummaging through them for bits. So it's kind of interesting to see that there is another machine that does that in this game that is not that machine. I would hope that it's not just like that enemy type in the game with a new lick of paint on it. That would be a bit disappointing. But if it's supplemented with new stuff, then you can't really complain. Games have been recycling enemy types for ages. You look at all the Halo games; they have the same set of enemies from one game to the next, and it's always mystified me how people don't rage about that. These are pretty cool. Flying machines are not new in Horizon as a franchise. You had forget what they were called. You had the glint hawks in Horizon Zero Dawn, which were like airborne scavengers. They would do the same as the other machines, where they'd if you destroyed a machine. One of the mechanics of Horizon Zero Dawn, again for the benefit of anyone who's not familiar, is that you can go up to the wreckage of the machine and then loot it for parts. You can get things like wire, ammunition, metal, like explosive elements, that kind of thing, and you use those to craft new weapons or restock the ones that you've got. So you had these things called glint hawks in the first game, which would like fly about, and if you took too long about looting any wreckage for parts, they'd swoop down and they'd start doing it instead. They'd get to parts before you. Then you had the Stormbird, which was a massive thing, really fun to fight, because those things would just dive bomb you out of nowhere. And these look kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure what sort of role these are supposed to play in the game, but they look more like pteranodons, or they kind of, they're in keeping with the more sort of dinosaur style design ethic that seems to be at work here.
Soak up the sun to patrol the sky.
And this looks really cool. I mean, these things, they look,
Its treasures.
at first glance, they looked kind of similar to these other hulking enemies that you've got in the first games. You had these machines called bellowbacks, and those would have kind of element-based attacks rather, like fire or ice. They would either roast you or freeze you. And they were these huge lumbering things. Again, really fun to fight. And at first glance, this new machine here in this part of the clip, I thought looked like it might be doing the same kind of thing as those. But then it does this. There's this strange thing where it's suddenly attracting armor plate out of nowhere to itself. And I assume that's the same machine doing that rolling attack.
The strongest are built only to kill. It is said there are
And then we have the snake that we've already seen. Interesting detail in the voiceover there is that it implies that certain machines, I keep wanting to call them creatures, certain machines in the game are built to be like apex predators. They're built only to kill. If you look at the machines in Horizon Zero Dawn, they all have function to them. They all are designed in such a way that they look like they've got a job that they do in the environment. And like the idea that you have machines that are there just to mess you up is not new. You had some pretty aggressive machines in the first game, like the Thunderjaw, the Ravager, which was basically an oversized panther with a gigantic bazooka on its back. Interesting detail in the storyline of the game is that apparently the machines are designed by a supercomputer that looks at nature and designs the machines to capitalize on all the best features of real world animals. So I'm not sure where it would get the idea that it's going to stick a bazooka on the back of a panther from. That to me is like, that's going the extra mile. I'm talking about thinking outside the box. That's like having a tarantula with a howitzer on its back. It's nightmare fuel.
Are those who can harness them, even bend them to their will. A powerful secret that in the wrong hands.
Yeah. These
Will lead
those kind of
of destruction.
those machines with the horns are holdovers from
Seen
Horizon Zero
since the
Dawn.
time of the old ones.
I think that's as much as they show us, but yeah, really looking forward to this game. Excuse me. I pretty much fell in love with the first game at first sight because I knew, like, even if it played like a dog, I knew that the environment and the setting was going to be fun to run around in. And just the whole general premise of it, to be travelling around a post-apocalyptic Earth that looks like it's a Roger Dean painting brought to life. To be sort of hunting and riding giant robot machines. This game is basically like any Yes album cover, like turned into a playable form. It's brilliant. They've missed a trick by not getting John Anderson to come in and do all the music stuff. That's a game I'd pay good money to play. I mean, I pay money for all the games I play anyway, so it's a silly statement, but whatever. But yeah, that's basically, to my knowledge, that's the entirety of the pre-release footage that's been put out there so far for Horizon Forbidden West. It looks absolutely spectacular. Something I did download that I forgot to port over to my streaming PC was there are actually some detailed images of the character models that Guerrilla are using for the game, and it's quite staggering. There were things annotated on that I wouldn't have noticed if they hadn't been pointed out to me. Things like soft, very fine facial hair on the lead character's face, like peach fuzz, that kind of thing. The way hair falls like over her shoulders, the kind of the fur textures and things that they're using for the for like the costumes and everything. There's a lot of really cool stuff just in the aesthetics of this game alone, and it looks like there's real substance to the gameplay, just like there was with Horizon Zero Dawn. Not only that, it looks like the opportunity has been taken to sort of take on board all the feedback that Guerrilla got by way of reviews from the first game, and they're very obviously trying to build on the foundation of what they had before. So I would be amazed if this game doesn't do gangbusters when it comes out. I can't imagine that there's anything they can do to mess it up. It looks like it's made of solid gold. I'm really interested in it, and I don't know when I'll be able to get hold of a copy. We'll probably wait until I can play it on a PS5. I'm not really in any great hurry, to be honest. I'll get to it eventually. These things are never, they're never expensive forever. So it'll be a nice thing to check out when it lands. Yeah. But I've basically run out of material to stream for tonight, so I'm just gonna check something over here on my OBS settings, just see what's going on there. Twitch is not actually showing me if anybody else is streaming, otherwise I would do a raid, but not to worry. I'm going to call it a night there for the stream. Thanks to everybody who's come by and hung out and watched it with me. If you've enjoyed the stream and you'd like to see more content like this, please do feel free to hit the follow button. I'm currently working towards affiliate status on Twitch, so when people do that, it really helps me out a lot. Please do feel free to share the stream any way you like. This VOD is going to be made available over on YouTube in just a little while, or however long it takes to do the export. So you can catch me over there as well if you want. You can follow me over on Twitter. My link is up in the top corner of the overlay here. By all means, let me know what you think of the stream. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to see me cover over here, because it is fun sometimes to just sit down and speculate on new games that look like they might be doing something a bit unusual or interesting. I'm going to wind it down there, like I say. Thanks for stopping by, and all of you have a great evening and stay safe out there. And I'll see you in the near future.